Hello and welcome to another episode of Game Analysis. In this game, you can see it was relatively recent, it was this month. I played in a rated USCF tournament, and in these three games, I faced two lower rated players and one intermediate player. I thought the games versus actually, really all three games were fairly instructional. I'll be going through those. So, I had white here. This was my round one game. I think my opponent said he was somewhere around like 1300, 1400 on chess.com, but he was new to rated events. So, that's pretty fun. He's, beginner, and it's fine. So I've been thinking e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, nothing out of the ordinary, and then d4. I like to play the Scotch Gambit. Objectively, it's pretty equal. Because there's an endgame you can get into where after you do some of this nonsense. Oops. Then castles, bishop c5, f3, knight g5, bishop e3, bishop e6, f4, knight here, takes, here, knight f3, there, bishop f2, castles, and then you can play either like b3 or a4, and this is just totally equal, right? Black has the two bishops. This one's a little blocked, but it's kind of necessary, and you have this, I call it a force vector bishop. Like if you've ever taken physics class, right? If you have two vectors going in the same direction, and they make contact, you add them together, right? Like pushing a cart up a hill or something like that, I don't know. But this bishop makes this pawn in turn stronger, by pointing through it, I guess. But yeah, this is pretty equal. It's the kind of thing you can get. A very common error I see is for people to play queen e7. I still don't quite understand why, because this isn't even the first time I've seen this. It's actually very frequent. Even this was a blitz game, but a 1900 USCF has played queen e7 against me before. I was up a piece that game and then it wandered into a draw, but it is what it is. But this move is no bueno, right? It's no good. Probably the biggest reason why is your kingside development now is super cramped because this bishop can never get out. It's stuck there. It's a dud, right? It's never gonna go anywhere. So that's the biggest issue I have. But I can see his idea where after he takes on d4, then my e-pawn is hanging. So I just simply defend the pawn, right? Nothing special, nothing crazy. d6, probably to pin this guy or something like that. I develop. My opponent defends, and I castle. Opponent also castles. Now, I think this is interesting because, again, you have this issue where I am, a couple moves. I'm just making up a move. This isn't good, obviously, because of f6, but I'm like 2 moves away from completing development where my opponent still has some substantial development issues on the king side, right? So at this point, I want to start my attack. So I play a4, right? I want to gain some space. I want to be ready to push like b4, then a5, etc. And even if, say, I blunder this b-pawn, well, not really blunder, but I give up the b-pawn, I think I have sufficient compensation. Because having that file would be very, very nice while attacking. So my opponent counterattacks, but notice that because these pieces aren't doing anything, the counterattack doesn't really have any punch to it. Play bishop b3, and maybe the immediate d5 would have been better. Actually, yeah, it almost definitely would have been better. I just wanted to finish my development, and maybe if I had spent some more time, I would have noticed that the immediate d5 was good here, but oh well, it is what it is. My opponent plays g6, probably to try and trade off these bishops, if I were to guess, or maybe play knight h6 and f5 or something like that, I'm not sure. Now, d5 is good, right? I don't want to give my opponent time to unravel this kingside. I want to strike at this king while I'm essentially up 2 pieces and a rook, right? Because these guys aren't doing anything, and they won't be doing anything. And here, notice that I'm already completely winning, right? Just because of these development issues that stem specifically because of Queen E7. I am more developed, I have more space, I'm going to be attacking, and generally when you have opposite side castling, you need to respond to your opponent's attack with a counterattack. But if you have to respond to an attack with passive defense, then you're just getting checkmated. And that's just from my experience with playing this a few times. Well, not this specifically, but having some opposite side castling games over the board. And here my opponent makes things even worse with knight d4. I am not interested in resolving this tension because I want to have the opportunity to open the A file. Instead, I opt to take the pawn, and now I'm threatening both this pawn plus the rook. Maybe taking with the queen is a little more accurate because then I'm threatening some nastier things and the rook. I don't think I even want to take that. Do I? I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking I don't want to have my queen offsides, right? I want to go for checkmate. But it doesn't really matter. I guess I would probably just leave it on d4, and then after something like g6, then b6, then I could play a5, and I'd be good. That seems like it would be pretty crushing. Yeah, I'm already even seeing ideas of like bishop c6, then if bishop takes, pawn takes, then I can play like queen d3, and then swoop in. And that also seems pretty crushing. Yeah, so it's clear that white is pretty winning here. So I take with the bishop, plays b6, trying not to get checkmated. So I see a free rook, I take a free rook. And the idea is that if black wants any sort of material back for the rook, he's going to have to spend a few tempi getting that, right? Like f6, bishop g7, etc. But the issue then is he's spending 2 tempi while I'm checkmating him, right? This king isn't looking too good, especially when I have this light square bishop all up in his grill, as the cool kids would say. So he plays f6 to trap my dark square bishop, and then now that I have these beautiful weak light squares around his king, I flick in a check. That way I can completely avoid this trade, and I can also restrict my opponent's king further. I want to play a5 and just rip this king open. So only legal move, and a5 as advertised, right? Obviously, you don't want to take here because then you're opening up your king, and well, maybe not that move because it blunders it, but you're just asking it to get checkmated. Not sure what the idea of bishop h6 was in the game. I'll be totally honest, because I think he had to just cut his losses and just play bishop g7 and just be down in exchange. But it wouldn't have mattered because black is just getting checkmated anyways. Yeah, it's just unfortunate at this point because this knight now has nowhere to go. It literally has 0 legal moves, so it's just kind of stuck there. I play queen d4, right? Because I want to rip this open and have an x-ray on that a7 square. And that way, too, I'm also reinforcing when I capture. So, c5, and I don't know if my opponent forgot or wasn't aware, but I was able to take that. Here comes the meme, en passant. And generally you want to make sure that taking en passant is actually good before you do it, and you're not just taking for the sake of taking en passant. If you're just playing for fun, fine, but if you're playing to improve, pay attention. And the biggest issue with this move is that you're weakening g6 too much. b6 too much. That's the biggest issue, because right now this isn't much of a threat because you just take back and big whoop, right? I gotta move more pieces in before I can do anything to hurt you or whatever. Or maybe I would probably go here and then sack, but same thing. But after c5 and I take, now all of a sudden I'm threatening to actually take this, and if you take back, you get checkmated. Right, so you're already seeing how that move c5 is completely weakening black's king. And I take. And this is actually an interesting concept. It doesn't apply so much here, but something like X-ray defense. This isn't X-ray, obviously it's direct defense, but sometimes you'll see like a random rook h7 or seemingly random rook h7, but that's actually can be a useful defensive move because after something like c5, then there's a discovered defense, right? It's more difficult to explain when it's not on the board, but I think X-ray defense is a very underappreciated concept. But like I said, in this case, it's not X-ray; it's just a direct defense of a7. So I take. Taking with the rook is no good because I play. Actually, how would I want to do that? Yeah, so we'll just say rook takes. Let's see, what's the cleanest win? Probably check here, right? Yeah, because let's say the bishop blocks. I'll just turn on the computer because I'm feeling lazy. Don't be like this. Don't be lazy. I'm just I'm feeling particularly lazy. Turn on the evaluation gauge too. Yeah, it's like plus 20. Takes. Turn that on. See what it says. Ah, right, the more direct check, which is probably a lot better than what I was thinking. But yeah, it's even just giving away the rook here and the bishop. So this is just busted at this point, right? Yeah, plus 62. Yeah, you're gonna need an adult if you're underage before you can see this kind of beatdown. But yeah, you get the idea, right? It's just absolutely crushing. Instead, he opted for a king. Let me turn this back off. King a8, which just gets you checkmated. After knight d5, right, I am threatening check here, which will lead to mate. Because obviously if you take this pawn, then during the discovery, then, you know, I have a whole variety of, that's a drunk knight, discovered attacks. So let's say, just for example, random legal move. Then I feel like I had a concrete line calculated in the game, but I don't remember it now. So yeah, I have something like, oh yeah, the queen's hanging too. Yeah, that's what I was forgetting. Oops. I was just making sure you guys were paying attention. That's all. Yeah, I definitely noticed that the queen was hanging here. So I don't know, let's say random move to save your queen. And you have something like check. And only legal move. Then check. Only legal move. And then mate. I think this is mate, right? Mate. And you got nothing. Alright, so that pawn's untouchable. So after knight d5, he took the knight. Then after check, now he takes the pawn again, same thing. Check, check, mate. So yeah, I thought that game was pretty instructive because it shows how a lack of coordination and development can lead to some substantial problems in your position, right? Because this knight never moved, this bishop couldn't get in the game, the rook over here didn't get in the game, it got captured, and all of that stemmed from a blunder on move 4. And yes, I will genuinely call queen e7 a blunder, and you saw exactly why that's a blunder in the game. So I think that just about wraps it up for this one. Remember to like and subscribe. Any questions, leave them down in the comments, and I'll get to them when I can. Hope you guys have a good day, and bye-bye.